Hello. My name is Kallista, and welcome back to Dragon Age Origins. In the last episode, we finished off the Dalish Elf origin, which means we are ending this series with my favourite of the origins, the City Elf origin. Say hello to Lialda Tabris. I absolutely love this character. She is my favourite of all of my wardens. And I acknowledge that is because, I mentioned this at the end of my Dragon Age Origins Let's Play, but Lialda was the first ever character I created when this game came out 11 years ago. And over those 11 years, she has changed so much, both aesthetically and personality-wise, and I love the final version of Lialda. I think she's stunning. I love how she looks. I love her hair. I think it really suits her. I love how sharp her features are. I mentioned this in the Dalish Elf origin. I really wanted to juxtapose how my elves looked. So the elf that was raised in the middle of nowhere looks very civilized and elegant, and the elf raised in civilization looks very feral and savage, and I love her. I think she is stunning. I know that most people probably wouldn't agree with me there, but I think she is so beautiful. Of course, she has a backstory. All of my characters do. If you aren't interested in hearing it, then a timestamp will be popping up somewhere around here, telling you when to skip ahead to. Lialda is 19 years old at the beginning of Dragon Age Origins. Here is her backstory. Lialda was born in the alienage in Denerim, in the little shack that she still lives in to this day. Despite the conditions in the alienage, Lialda was happy. She had a 1-year-old cousin, Saurus, who lived with her family, so she had a constant playmate, and her parents loved her dearly. Her father, Syrian, stayed home while her mother Adaya went out to work. And while Lialda was sad to see her go, Adaya would always return with stories of danger and excitement. But Syrian seemed wary of these stories. He worried about Lialda growing up into a troublemaker, though Adaya would always disregard his fears, saying that a little trouble wasn't always a bad thing. As soon as Lialda was big enough to hold a dagger, Adaya even began teaching her daughter how to fight. When Lialda was 7, her cousin Shiani came to live with them. Lialda knew that her aunt had come down with some kind of sickness, and Syrian journeyed out into the country to bring his niece back to Denerim. Shiani was initially a very shy little girl, unused to the hustle and bustle of a big city, but Lialda helped her to fit in, giving her a stuffed Mabari toy to use as a comforter. Lialda and her cousins became a tight-knit group, constantly hanging out and playing together. Though when Lialda was 13, her mother didn't come home one day. It wasn't unusual for Adaya to be gone for days at a time because of her job, but after a week, Syrian started to get worried. Her father went out, but instead of returning with Adaya, he came back with Valendrian. He sat Lialda down and said that her mother had been killed by humans, though he didn't give any more details. Lialda was devastated. Her mother was her hero. She couldn't be dead. Shiani was a great comfort during this time. She was always there with an ear to listen and a shoulder to cry on. Shiani cemented herself as Lialda's best friend in the months following Adaya's death, although Lialda would never admit this to Saurus. Lialda knew her mother would want her to continue with her training, but without anyone there to guide her, Lialda came up with a slightly more unorthodox approach. What better way to practice being stealthy and picking locks than by breaking into places she shouldn't be? She got into frequent trouble with the city guards, but Valendrian was always there to smooth things over and make sure her punishments were never too severe. But the one thing Valendrian couldn't protect was Lialda's reputation. She became a known troublemaker, and when the time came for a match to be made, Syrian found few families willing to marry their sons to her, and none of them reputable. But her father's hard work and patience eventually paid off when Lialda was 19. A good family from High Ever agreed to the match, and with that, Lialda's future could be secured. Lialda's current objective is to get married for her father's sake. If it'll make him happy, then she'll try to make it work. There we go, that is her backstory. Now then, I think... There we go, that's a good set, I think, for a dual-wielding rogue. And we start off with coercion, fantastic. Lock-picking, and I want a sweep. There we go, that's good.
Denerim, the largest city and capital of Ferelden. Long ago, the elves lived as slaves to humans, and though they've been free for many generations now, they are far from equals. Here they live in a walled-off community known as the Alienage, working as servants and laborers when they can. Despite these hardships, Denerim's elves are a strong people who take pride in their close community. This is the only world you've ever known. Until now.
Wake up, cousin. Why are you still in bed? It's your big day.
Alrighty then. Now what am I doing for not Rosanna's voice, excuse me, Lialda's voice? So in later games they clarify that Denerim is basically London, and as such all of the elves from the Denerim alienage have Cockney accents. I'm not even going to attempt to do that. Trust me, it's really bad. Like, I have tried and I have failed to do a Cockney accent. As such, for Lialda, I'm going to be leaning into my natural accent rather than away from it, which is what I typically do. So, let's see, what have we got here? Also, I apologise if you can't understand me when I talk like this. Just a little longer. Huh? What? Did I oversleep? What? Why are you in my room, Shiani? Let's try and get a few more winks of sleep. Just a little longer.
Come on, don't make me use cold water again. You do remember what today is, don't you?
Summer day? Someone's wedding? According to your breath, it's get drunk before noonday. Someone's wedding?
A double wedding. You're getting married and so is Saurus. That's what I came to tell you. Your groom, Nelaros. He's here early.
Already? Then I guess I don't have a choice. Really, that's great. The sooner the better. I don't like the idea of this arranged match business. So that means we do it now? I'm not ready. Ooh. So not number 3. Lialda has absolutely no issues with the fact that it's an arranged match. That's the done thing. It's part of a culture and she doesn't really have an issue with that. Also, if it wasn't an arranged match, who would she marry? She's related to almost everyone in Denerim's alienage. Who would she marry? But at the same time, she is kind of wary of getting married. So that means we do it now? I'm not ready.
Well, it's going to happen anyway, so hold your breath and jump in. There's going to be music, decorations, feasting. Weddings are so much fun. You're so lucky.
I don't feel lucky. And how does Saurus feel? Maybe you should be the one getting married. You just want to get to the drinking. And how does Saurus feel?
I think he's just glad he's not alone. He's sweating so much he looks like a human. All right, I'll stop tormenting you. I should go talk to the other bridesmaids and find my dress. Oh, Saurus said that he'll be waiting for you outside, so move it.
Aye, Shiani, I hear ya, I'll hear ya, I'll get a move on. I've got to admit, it is rather odd to be talking in my natural accent for a consistent amount of time. A bit of context for you. I went to quite a prestigious private secondary school, or high school if you prefer, and I got really into, drama, public speaking, all of that gubbins. And every year the school would hold this, huge public speaking contest. And they really didn't appreciate someone who speaks like I speak representing them, and as such I was heavily encouraged to kind of suppress this and start speaking with a BBC English accent, and it just kind of became very ingrained, and as such I speak like this, in my day-to-day life. It is a bit of a sore spot. I'm very proud of where I come from. I'm very proud of my hometown, and the fact that I don't sound like people from my hometown is kind of upsetting. A little bit, kind of. And yes, we absolutely want our wedding clothes. Get them on, girl. Oh, first the tones. Forgot about them for a minute. There we go. 2 cunning 1 decks. And more coercion. You can never have enough coercion. Now then, my dear, get your wedding dress on. Don't she look beautiful? Look at her. Well, this is bad lighting. There we go. Look at her. I love her so much. I love her so much. Now then, what do we get? Alienage culture. There have always been alienages. They have been around for as long as elves and shents have lived in the same lands. Ours isn't even the worst. They say that Val Royeaux has 10,000 elves living in a space no bigger than Denerim's market. Their walls are supposedly so high that daylight doesn't reach the Venedal until midday. But don't be so anxious to start tearing down the walls and picking fights with the guards. They keep out more than they keep in. We don't have to live here, Sometimes a family gets a good break and they buy a house in the docks or the outskirts of town. If they're lucky, they come back to the alienage after the looters have burned their house down. The unlucky ones just go to the pauper's field. Here, we're among family. We look out for each other. Here we do what we can to remember the old ways. The flat ears who have gone out there, they're stuck. They'll never be human. And they've gone and thrown away being elven too. So where does that leave them? Nowhere. Serethia, Haren of the High Ever Alienage, this infuriates me. I find the racism among elves so stupid. Because the Dalish look down at the city elves as being flat ears who have given up what it means to be elven, and the city elves look down on the elves who don't live in alienages as flat ears who have given up what it means to be elven. Why? You're surrounded by hatred. Why do you need to add to it? I don't get the elves. Sometimes I really don't understand them. Okie doke. And Syrian. You're right, Dad.
Ah, my little girl. It's the last day I'll be able to call you that. Oh, I wish your mother could have been here.
Me too, Father. Well, what should I be doing? Why today? Just because my betrothed is early. Could we talk about this arrangement? Yeah. Leah, she's gonna go through with the wedding because it'll make her dad proud. She don't want to upset her dad. She loves him to pieces. But she's not exactly happy about this whole thing. Could we talk about this arrangement?
Still not pleased, I can see. Of course we can talk.
No, I suppose there's no point. Why can't I choose who I marry? Do I really have to get married? It's number 3. Number 3's the main sticking point. She just doesn't want to get married. Do I really have to get married?
It's time for you to have your own life. Unmarried, you're a child forever. The dowry has been paid, the chantry has issued the permit, and everything is ready. All we need is you.
Well, if that's the way it is, I guess I'm ready. You paid a dowry for my groom, but I don't want to get married.
I understand. Before I met Adaya, I was ready to go hunt for the Dalish. Just be glad I chose the match. Without parents to represent you, children like your cousin Soris end up marrying whoever the Elder can find.
I appreciate your efforts. So tell me about my groom. So who did the Elder find for him? Instead, I have to marry you say. Great. I think it's between 1 and 2 because Leah does understand that this wedding, it's not coming from a malicious place. It's not a dad trying to marry her off so he can be rid of her. He's done this because he thinks that's what's best for her. And she understands that. And I do think she appreciates that he's gone to all of this effort. At the same time, if we're marrying someone, we should probably learn a bit about him. So, tell me about me groom.
Nelaros? He's from a good family in High Ever. Their youngest son. He's an expert at the blacksmith's anvil, from what I'm told. And yes, he's very handsome. I knew you'd ask, so I thought I'd save you the trouble. All right, time for you to go find Soris. The sooner this wedding starts, the less chance you two have to escape.
Don't worry, it'll be fine. A small chance is still a chance. I want to see me betrothed, at least. Thank you, Father. Leah, she's me most jokey, Warden. Small chance is still a chance.
Still have your mother's smart mouth, I see. Oh, one last thing before you go, my dear. Your martial training, the sword play, knives, and whatever else your mother trains you in, best not to mention it to your betrothed.
It's not that important anyhow. I take it you didn't say anything. He'll find out sooner or later.
Later. Definitely later. We don't want to seem like troublemakers after all. Adaya made that mistake.
Let's just get on with this, shall we? The humans who killed her made a bigger one. Mother was a clever rogue. I just need to stop and talk about this because I brought this up at the end of my Liliana's song Let's Play because Adaya is in that DLC and it's very odd. It's such an odd inclusion. If they wanted to make a connection to the city elf origin, they could have had Valendrian or Syrian make an appearance. Or if they just wanted an elven woman, then they could have left her unnamed. None of the other prisoners are named, and they could have just had random elf woman who says, "Thank you for saving me." But instead they go to the trouble of naming her Adaya and giving her dialogue talking about how, "Oh, I will tell my children of humans like you." Which, again, very clear connection to the city elf origin. And I find that so bizarre. And this line, the humans who killed her made a bigger one. Not the humans who murdered her. The humans who killed her. My own little theory is that Adaya wasn't murdered. She was executed at His Majesty's pleasure. I think Adaya was a smuggler. And that's why Liliana would know her, because Adaya smuggled Liliana into Ferelden. That's why I didn't go into too much detail what Adaya's job was in Lialda's backstory. I don't think Lialda knew that her mother was a smuggler. I don't think she ever really asked too many questions rather, about her mother. Her mother would just go out, often at night, and then she wouldn't come back for a couple of days, and when she did come back, she'd have money. And like I said, I went into this at the end of Liliana's song. I'll go into it a little bit now. I think that, Liliana, she's just committed treason. Well, Marjolaine's committed treason and framed Liliana for it. She needs to smuggle herself into Ferelden. Going across a land border, there'd probably be a checkpoint. That's not really all too great. It would be much easier to smuggle yourself in via a port city, and Denerim is a port city. I think Adaya was Liliana's Ferelden contact. She hid Liliana for a few days and then sent her out into the country to Lothering. And in that time, the Ferelden, or rather Denerim city guards, find out about this Orlesian traitor, and they think, we can capture her. She slipped the Orlesians' net. It'll make us look really good if we capture her and execute her. So they come, they arrest Adaya, and Adaya won't give up Liliana's position. And as such, they execute her. And, Syrian doesn't want to tell his little girl that her mother was executed, so instead he just tells her she was killed by humans. It's the truth, but it's, he's lying via omission. And Liliana, upon hearing that this woman who saved her life has died, decides to immortalize Adaya by putting her in her story. Except in Liliana's song, Adaya gets to leave the dungeon. She gets to go back home to the daughter she so loved. If you disagree with that theory, that is fine. That is A-okay. It is just my own little personal theory and headcanon. Okay. Now then, on to the dialogue options. I don't think I want to go with number 2. Because I read that as quite an aggressive, the humans who killed her made a bigger one. And Leah isn't angry. I think she's come to terms with the fact that, her mother was killed. It was many years ago. And it is an unfortunate reality that violence between humans and elves does occur in the alienage. She's come to terms with it. Mother was a clever rogue.
Yes, that she was. Take this. Your mother would have wanted you to have it. It's the very least I can give you as you start your new life. Go on then, I still have some things to do, and Saurus is no doubt waiting for you.
Indeed. The City Elves. The humans tell tales of Andraste, and to them she was a prophet. To our people, however, she was an inspiration. Her rebellion against Tevinter gave our people a window through which to see the sun, and we reached toward it with all our strength. The rebellion was brief, but successful. Even after the death of the prophetess, we fought on for independence as the human imperium began to crumble. In the end, we won freedom, and the southern land known as the Dales, and we began the long walk to our new homeland. There, in the Dales, our people revived the lost lore as best we could. We called the first city Halam Sharal, end of the journey, and founded a new nation, isolated as elves were meant to be, this time patrolled by an order of Emerald Knights, charged with watching the borders for trouble from humans. But as you already know, you already know that something went wrong. A small elven raiding party attacked the nearby human village of Red Crossing, an act of anger that prompted the Chantry to retaliate and, with their superior numbers, conquer the Dales. We were not enslaved, as we had been before, but our worship of the ancient gods was now forbidden. We were allowed to live among the humans only as second-class citizens who worshipped their maker, forgetting once more the scraps of lore we had maintained through the centuries. The rise and fall of the Dales, as told by Sarethia, Haren of the High-Ever Alienage. I find it so interesting that the City Elves acknowledge Red Crossing, because I'm pretty sure the Dalish don't. I'm pretty sure the Dalish view this as like Chantry propaganda, and they basically say that, oh no, the elves would never have done that. We would have never have raided Red Crossing. It was all a ploy by the Chantry to use as an excuse to wage war on us. Now, we as the player, we know that Red Crossing happened. An elven raiding party, kind of, did attack the village of Red Crossing. I want to be kind of vague here, just because I know that my boyfriend watches these videos and he hasn't played Inquisition yet, so he doesn't know anything about this, so hence why I'm being slightly vague here. Yeah, Red Crossing did happen. To be fair, the reason why the Chantry retaliated against the Dales. It's a very complicated issue. Red Crossing happened. The Dales wouldn't provide any soldiers to stop the second blight. The elves just kind of said, you deal with it amongst yourselves. We aren't going to bother stopping the blight, which, not particularly smart. The blight threatened them just as much as anyone else. I also think that the Chantry did kind of expect that, you know, we freed you, therefore you should worship our god. You shouldn't try and reclaim your own culture. You should do what we say. Oh wait, the freed slaves aren't doing what we say anymore. Who could have ever predicted this? You know, it's a very complicated issue. Oh, look at it. Look at Denerim. Smell the air. It smells like garbage. How beautiful.
There once was a woman, she lived in the sea. I didn't love her, but I think she loved me. I brought her diamonds, rubies, silver, and gold. But all she wanted was to be saved from the cold. She begged me to catch her, convinced me I should. I promised her a house, all gray stone and wood. We made love in the sea. We made love on the shore. I was just there for playing, but she wanted more. But there's one small problem, you see. I can't grant her wish. My wife gets suspicious when I come home smelling like fish.
Lovely.
Whoa. Aren't you a sight for sore eyes?
Oh my god, I was about to say you're drunk. No, that's actually an option. You're drunk. Glad to see you celebrating. Just doing the rounds, collecting wedding presents. Oh, number 3, absolutely. Just doing the rounds, collecting wedding presents.
We thought the,
We thought cash would be better. Spend's easier.
Right. Yeah, we gathered up, 30 bits. That's a pretty good wedding present for anyone.
That it is. Much better than a present, yes?
Persuade. Well, 40 bits is more traditional. Absolutely. Thanks, boys. It'll do, I guess. Well, 40 bits is more traditional.
Oh, you're right. Don't mind us. We're a bit tipsy. Here's 10 bits to top it off.
Now you go celebrate your big day and we'll do the same. Big day. Lots of celebrating.
Ta-ra, fellas. Thank you for the money. You know, at least this wedding is good for one thing. We can get some cash out of it. Oh, okay, what have we got here? There's Nessa and her family. I don't believe these people are all too familiar.
Well, it's around the eyes, mostly.
I still don't see it. Whenever I look, I just see the mother.
The mother was far more delicate.
It's the same sort of nose, you must admit that. The breeding shows.
Oh, there you go again with breeding. We're not horses, you know.
Of course not, but bloodlines are important, that's all I'm saying.
I think the whole notion is ridiculous.
Well, you've got the freedom to think so. You come from good stock.
Yeah, I'll get to them in a minute. Excuse me, sir. Venadal, the tree of the people. Mostly the old ways are gone. Each generation forgets a little more of the old tongue, a little more of the traditions. And the few things we keep become simple habits, the meaning long since faded. So it is with the Venadal, the tree of the people. Every alienage has one, I'm told. Or they used to. When I was a little girl, my mother told me the tree was a symbol of our Lathan, but not even she knew more. Keeping the Venadal is just a habit now. Many cities let theirs wither and die, then chop them up for firewood. No great loss. Sarethia, Haren of the High-Ever alienage. Yeah, I don't really think that Lialda puts much... Oh, what's the word I'm looking for? She doesn't put much emphasis on, you know, the old traditions and the old ways. I think it... How do I want to put this? It's kind of like... It's like me at Christmas. Like, my family will get out, like, the little nativity scene and all of that. Me dad's Roman Catholic. I was raised Roman Catholic. I'm an atheist, however. So, you know, getting round and, like, looking at the nativity scene and all of that, it doesn't have that religious significance to me. I do it because it makes my dad happy. But it's nothing, you know, symbolic or out like that. It's just become a Christmas habit, that kind of thing. And I do think that Lialda, she might occasionally, you know, water the Venedal or leave an offering, but it's not because she's like, oh, look at me being an elfy elf. It's none of that. It's just habit at this stage. Like, I don't imagine she knows any Elven. I think she's literate. She's not like Nefri, who was completely illiterate, but I don't imagine that Lialda is the best reader of Common. So her learning Elven would be laughable.
Well, it's the lucky bride herself. Hello, dear.
Oh, now, love, she probably doesn't remember us.
Oh, of course. I'm Dilwen, and this is Gethon. We were friends of your mother's. We haven't seen much of you since, well...
Father really loved her. Father never mentioned you. What can you tell me about me mother? Fascinating, but I've got to go. So, in Lialda's backstory, I said that her mother died when she was 13, which... Here's the thing. Here is my problem with Adaya's death. So, she died when you were really young and you don't really remember her. Which would imply that she probably died when you were about 4 or 5, because that's round about when long-term memory starts to kick in. However, you were old enough for her to teach you martial training and swordplay and knives and stuff. So, unless she was teaching a 2-3-year-old how to fight, that really doesn't make any sense. So I gave Adaya a bit longer in Thedas. I think that, you know, her dying 6 years ago, 6 years is a pretty long time, so I think it still kind of works. I think I'm going to go with number 3. How I interpret this is that Lialda never really knew much about Adaya as Adaya. She knew her as Mam. You know, this is the woman who raised me and loved me and clothed me, but she didn't know Adaya as a young woman, as, you know, an expectant mother, as a worker. She didn't know any of those other facets of a mother's life, and she'd like to know more about that. What can you tell me about my mother?
Your father still doesn't speak of her, does he?
Adaya was beautiful and full of life, and a bit wild.
She wanted you more than anything. It's sad she never got to see you all grown up.
We just wanted to see you today and express our good wishes.
I really think that Leah is the absolute spit of a mother. Both appearance-wise, because she very clearly takes more after Adaya than her dad, and also in terms of her personality. Just, she's like a little mini-me of Adaya, I think. Thank you. Any friend of me mother's is a friend of mine. I'm not getting married. I'm not interested in your wishes, good or otherwise. Any friend of me mother's is a friend of mine.
It means the world to us to see you happy.
We've saved a bit of money for this day. We'd like you to have it, to help start your new life.
That's very generous of you. I'm honoured, thank you. I can't accept this. That's very generous of you.
Make her bless you.
Make her bless you too. Oh, that was nice. Meeting some of Mother's friends from before she passed. You know, I was gonna go and speak to Nessa and her family. However, I am just about out of time for this episode. You know what? I'm just gonna add this onto the end here. I don't think I've said why Lialda, excuse me. I don't think I've said why Lialda doesn't want to get married. And that is because whilst she might have a happy marriage with Nelaros, it will never be a loving marriage. Because Lialda is already in love with someone else. However, she can't marry them. Just because it would cause a lot of upheaval in her community, and she doesn't want to rock the boat. Not like that. And as such, she's still very much in love with this person, but she's kind of had to say, I'm going to put my feelings for them to the side and just focus on what I can do. Because pining after this person I can never be with, it'll just cause me pain. And she acknowledges that, but she still does pine. It's, you know, the heart wants what it wants. Okie doke, in the next episode we will go and have a chat with Nessa, but until then, please remember to like if you enjoyed, leave a comment below, and if you wanted to subscribe, it would be very much appreciated. I've been Kallista. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next episode.